What's going on, everybody? Taylor and Ron here in the Y'all 106.7 Red Wing Shoe Studio. Today we have two very special guests, Duane Allen and Richard Sterban of the Oakridge Boys. Welcome to y'all.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
How we feeling, guys?
Yeah, we're doing great.
Yes.
Great.
You are very busy. Let me just start by saying, what a resume. Let's just remind everybody, 41 million records sold. That's an unbelievable number, right? Hall of Fame, you're in it, for country music. Grand Ole Opry, you're members. You've got 4 CMA awards. You've got 4 ACM awards, 5 Grammys. And that list of awards just keeps going and keep going. The whole interview could just be you guys' awards. That's a pretty amazing track record. And here you are, and you still have new music coming out even this week. This is quite the career, right?
We love what we do, and I've always felt like that you could rest on those laurels and enjoy that. But if you want to grow in the future, you need new music to do that. So we keep growing. Even though we're on our farewell tour, so to speak,
yeah.
We have not put an end date on that. We just we know that at our age, we will hang it up someday. And we decided that we would put that word in the tour name so that people would know that some of these days, really soon, we are going to hang it up. So come on out to see us. And we've really been having great crowds. But we've also been recording new music for them so that they can see that we're actually still growing.
What's funny, we were talking a little bit earlier about just the history of the band, because some people don't know the band, in one form or another has really been around since 1943. So, you guys joined in, 72 and 66. So you've been kind of the core that we all remember. But the band's been around forever. It's got a great history. It's got a great name. And, and you take that and you go, well, you guys are going to do like 25 dates before the end of the year. You're busy. You're out on the road all the time. So there's the great history, but there's the great future as well.
Well, I think our history is one of the reasons that we are experiencing longevity. I don't think there's a group in our business that has the history that we have. As you mentioned, it dates back to the Second World War. Believe it or not, there was a group named the Georgia Clodhoppers.
Great name.
We were in need of a name change, don't you think?
You're right. That group definitely needed a name change. And they would go to to Oakridge, Tennessee, and entertain the people there that were working on the development of the atomic bomb. It was called the Manhattan Project. They could not leave for security reasons. The Georgia Clodhoppers had security clearance, so they could go in, and they went there on a regular basis and entertain these people and their families. And that's kind of where it all started. As a result of going to Oakridge all the time, they decided to change their name from the Georgia Clodhoppers to the Oakridge Quartet. And then that group sang, after the war into the 1950s. I heard Duane talking about it earlier this morning, became regulars on the Friday night Grand Ole Opry here at the old Ryman Auditorium, and that was a special time as well. Then in the latter 50s, those gentlemen decided to retire. The younger guys took the group over, and the name was then changed to Oakridge Boys. William Lee Golden was the first guy to join in 65. Duane came 1 year later. I joined in 72, and then Joe Bonzel came 1 year later in 73. So we have an amazing history, and we don't quite want that history to end just yet. So,
You're still writing it.
Right, yeah.
Your sound is timeless and distinctive, but you keep coming out with new music, but you're still staying true and authentic to the Oakridge Boys sound. The new album, Mama's Boys, where did that come from? Whose idea was it to name the album that, and did you have a hand in writing the songs on the album?
The name of the album and the concept came from Dave Cobb, our producer. He said, our last album previous to this one was called Front Porch Singing. Mm-hmm. That took a real homey approach, like back home and the feelings of going back home to visit with parents and friends, and the feelings that you would get sitting out on the front porch, and how gathering around on the front porch you would gather instruments around, you would start singing. And that thought came from David Cobb as well, and it came from our Christmas show where we sit in rocking chairs and sing Christmas songs. He saw that and he said, let's do a front porch singing album. Well, that kind of evolved to Mama's Boys. He said, let's stay in that kind of frame of thinking, and let's think about all the things that Mama taught us about love and life and leaving and our faith and our friends and how to get along in the world and all the things that Mama taught us. Let's stay in that way of thinking, because people like that out of the Oakridge Boys. And so that thought pattern was a continuation that started basically with our rocking chair segment in our Christmas show and evolved to our front porch singing, and now it's come to the things that Mama taught us, all those things that are important in our life. And the very title of that song came after our lead guitar player, Rex Wiseman, heard us talking about it. Well, he sat down and wrote a song called Mama's Boys, and that became the title of the song. And each song that made it on this album came from people who wrote it directly for the song, or something that one of the Oakridge Boys brought in. Like, I don't remember who brought it in, but once we started talking about Mama, there was a song that was written several years ago by a great gospel writer, Dottie Rambo, called Mama's Teaching Angels How to Sing. And once that title came up, everybody said, yeah, we got to cut that song. So that song made the album.
So there's 10 new songs on the album. It's coming out on Friday. You guys are going to be out on the road promoting it. You're going to be very busy through the end of the year. Mm-hmm. You do have a new singer with you guys. So how's that? You've been together so long as a group. How does a new guy come in and fit in and gel? And what's that like on the bus ride?
Well, it's a lot of fun, first of all. The rest of us are in our 80s, so, and now we have a kid only 28 years old now that's singing with us,
Right.
But I have to admit, he's a very talented, and if you just listen to this record, you'll realize how talented he really is. And he's brought a youth to our group. He's brought energy to us, and it's very exciting, to be singing with him right now. And we're excited to have him on this farewell tour, and we're having a lot of fun with him in the group. And it's kind of interesting how he came to be here. We were singing in a concert a couple of years ago with a group called Deli and Vincent. I'm sure you've heard of them. They're members of the Grand Ole Opry, just like we are. And when we got to the end of our show and we were doing Elvira, they came out on the stage and they joined us, kind of like an old-fashioned gangbang kind of a thing, and we were having a lot of fun. Joe sang the first verse of that song like he usually does, or like he usually did, and then when we got to the second verse, he turned over, handed the microphone to Ben James, who was standing right next to him, because he was singing with Deli and Vincent then, and he sang that second verse. And we looked at each other. We went, "Wow, this kid can really sing."
He gets it. He gets the Oakridge Boys.
Yeah, and we found out that he was a big fan of Joe's. He knew everything that Joe sang for the most part. And then him and Joe kind of hit it off and started corresponding. And then when Joe finally got to the place where he could not continue any longer, he kind of felt like we should, hire, Ben to take his place through this, farewell tour. So he was kind of handpicked in some ways by Joe.
So he had Joe's blessing.
Yes,
yeah.
And he's not trying to be Joe. We're not asking him to be Joe. He's just being himself. But the best thing about it is our fans have really accepted him. They really have, and it's kind of great to see that.
That's
It's kind of interesting that on the last Christmas show that we did last year, Joe had told us, I'm going to do my best to do all the Christmas shows. Well, he did, and he was a soldier. I mean,
Trooper,
he was a real trooper, and he sang full voice all the way to the very last note on the very last Christmas show. And as we helped him over to his wheelchair on the edge of the stage, and he looked up and he said, I'm done. He said, this is it. And the next morning, he made a phone call, and it was to Ben James. And Joe is the one that called Ben James. He said, Ben, I'm done. Get on your singing britches.
So he passed the baton.
He passed it himself.
That's awesome.
We were going to have Joe sing on this album, this new album, and kind of have a vocal passing the baton. But when it came time to record, Joe said, I just don't have my diaphragm to support my tones like I would like. And he said, I don't want to sing like I'm accustomed to singing because I don't feel like I can. So you guys go on and make this album with my blessings. And there's something that's happening right now. Yesterday on Facebook, I got 2 posts from 2 completely different people, not talking with each other, both sent to me. And both of them almost said the same thing. They said, we could hear Joe in the background singing with you. Was he back there actually singing with you in the harmony? And so I answered them, and I thought about how I could answer that, and really, how do I answer that? Well, Ben has studied us so much that there are distinct sounds among the 3 left of the Oakridge boys that are distinct sounds. And Joe had a distinct sound that he added when he added his voice. When Ben sings with us, he filled that gap. And he has studied Joe so much that I think probably subconsciously, when we sing harmony, he sings in that range and puts the harmony in much like Joe, enough that it sounds like Joe a lot. Now, when he sings by himself, it is distinctively different. He has a different sound. But I went out front on our first rehearsal with Ben, and I sat out front and sang my part out there with the handheld mic just to see how it sounded. The 3 of us sounded like 3 Peterbilt engines running right straight at you, and Ben was just kind of floating over the top, but it still sounded like the Oakridge boys. And Ben has a little bit more of a tenor voice than Joe had. Joe had just a high lead voice, about a third higher than me. But Ben has got a real tenor sounding voice. He's actually higher. Mm-hmm. But when we sing together, he has the ability to harmonize with us and put in the part that makes it sound like the Oakridge boys sound, because he studied us so much that he knows what that sound is. And he is good enough that he knows how to do that.
Well, I think the answer is we hope he is. We hope he's on, because maybe he is,
Well,
spiritually he's there.
Singing through it.
no question.
Maybe he's on it and you guys don't even realize it. Maybe
we feel his blessings no matter what. And Joe has no pain where he is. Absolutely. And we miss Joe. We love Joe. and we sang with Joe every Christmas song that we had planned, and he had planned to work with us this year. We cut our tour dates down from what we normally work 150 days a year down to 50. And Joe said, if I can work all the Christmas dates, maybe I can work the dates next year, a few dates next year. And I said, well, we normally work 150. How does 50 sound? He said, well, that sounds great. Maybe I can work 50. But it wasn't meant to be, because when we got to the point to where he felt like that he couldn't really do it anymore at the level that he required of himself, then he told us, I'm done. This is the best I can do, and I need to go home and take care of my health.
So we kind of talked a little bit about how Ben is now kind of in the band. But you guys each have kind of a cool backstory of before or as you were joining the band. So you each made decisions to be here. We were talking earlier about you leaving the Army and getting in the car and driving to Nashville. But I've also read somewhere that you had classical training, like operatic training. So my mind went Opry, kind of the same thing. Maybe not.
It's a long way from the Metropolitan Opera to the Grand Ole Opry.
Yes.
But I guess I'm somewhere in the middle. I only classify music in two categories. There's good and there's bad.
Good.
And,
Amen.
It affects you in one of three ways: good or bad or not at all.
Yeah.
And we try to stay in the good category. We do positive music, and we stay away from the drinking and cheating songs. We do family shows. We make no bones about it. You can bring all your family to the Oakridge Boys show, and you're not going to be disappointed. And it's always been that way, and it will always be that way. And yes, I did go to college, and I've got a degree in classical music, and I taught for a semester after college to get my teacher's certificate because I didn't know how long singing on the road would last.
Yeah.
And I thought that someday I might wind up be a school teacher, teaching music and maybe coaching basketball in some high school or college somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I love basketball. I was a pretty good basketball player. And I thought that that's maybe the way that I spent the rest of my life if my music dreams did not pan out. But my music dreams have lasted with the Oakridge Boys for 58 and a half years, and I sang 1 year with the Prophets, another group from Knoxville, Tennessee, right after I got out of college. So 59 and a half years, this is all I've done.
And you had some decisions to make when you were joining the band.
No question.
You had other opportunities.
Yeah. Well, I actually, living in New Jersey, I went to college in Trenton, New Jersey. While I was in college, I met three other guys from Bristol, Pennsylvania, which is right across the Delaware River into the state of Pennsylvania. We formed a group and started singing. And because the three guys were from the Keystone State, which is the state of Pennsylvania, we decided to call our group the Keystone Quartet. And then after a while, we met Joe. He became a part of the group. While I was singing in the Keystone Quartet, I got a phone call one day from not J.D. Sumner himself, but his son-in-law, informing me that J.D. Sumner wanted to retire. He wanted to get off the road. He has some businesses on the side, like a publishing company and a talent agency, stuff like that. And he wanted to hire a younger guy to take his place. So they offered me the job. It involved me having to move to Nashville, which I did. And you'll never believe what happened. I was only in Nashville for just a few months when J.D. Sumner got a phone call from the king himself, from the king of rock and roll, Elvis. And they kind of knew each other from living in Memphis together. And Elvis was looking to hire a new backup group, and he hired J.D. Sumner and the Stamps. And here I was, a young guy. All of a sudden, I find myself on stage with the biggest star in the world. And that was pretty amazing. It really was, his tour was the biggest tour in the music business, and it was very exciting. I got to know Elvis just a little bit, and I have some great memories of the times that I spent with him. But to finally get around to your point, while I was singing with Elvis, one day I got a phone call, and it was from William Lee Golden of the Oakridge Boys, and he then informed me that the bass singer in the group was leaving, and the Oakridge Boys wanted to know if I would be interested in taking the job. So here I was, apparently on top of the world, singing with the king of rock and roll, but I had to make a decision, like, what do I do? And I have to admit that at the same time, I was a big fan of the Oakridge Boys. I loved the music they were making, and I really felt like the group had a great deal of potential, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I made the decision to leave Elvis, join the Oakridge Boys, and back then a lot of people questioned that decision. How could you do that? Leave Elvis and join? But I really believed I was doing the right thing. I followed my heart. Now, 52 years later, not just me personally, all of us can look back on a great career that we've been so blessed to have. And I never dreamed back when I was singing with Elvis, just a young guy in my 20s, that someday I would be in the same Hall of Fame with him. If you go in the Rotunda here in Nashville, you walk, it's a special place. We were just there Sunday night for the medallion ceremony. You walk in there, you see the four faces of the Oakridge Boys in bronze. It's beyond words to describe how special that is. And then you look around, you'll see Elvis. You'll see Johnny Cash. You'll see Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers. And for the Oakridge Boys to be there, it's so special. And you never know how things are going to happen in your life.
Well, it's funny. We've spoken before a couple of times, and I think one of the things that sticks out that you have said is, I'm one of the few people in the world that probably gets to say, I quit Elvis. Not too many people on that list.
And I told you, we were at we do it every year. We try to support the Hall of Fame because we're so honored to be members of it. And last Sunday night, James Burton, Elvis's longtime guitar player, was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I had a chance to kind of hang out with him for just a little bit, and we reminisced our old days, and Glenn Harding, the keyboard player in Elvis's band, he happened to be there to support James Burton, and the three of us, I think we may be the only three guys still alive that actually work with Elvis.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing.
You saying you follow your heart, too, is very powerful, because I'm sure that you felt very conflicted and you had a lot of outside voices, but you just knew that you were being led to the Oakridge Boys. And
no question. You hit the nail right on the head. No question about that. And I believed in my heart I was doing the right thing.
It worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And when we were talking earlier, you were talking about, leaving the Army, basically talking your banker into loaning you the money for a car, and you driving to Nashville and going to the RCA studios and walking in and basically joining the Oakridge Boys. It's kind of a full circle moment, because when you cut this new album, you guys are part of it's back over in the RCA studios.
That's right.
So that's kind of like old home week. You get to go back and kind of revisit the past. How's it feel to be in that studio? It's got to be amazing. Everybody's recorded there.
Well, that's the place where Elvis got.
Right.
Yep.
And I got a call one day. Of course, our office was on the second floor and was there for many years. And one day I got a call from our bass singer at that time, Herman Harper, and he said, do you want to meet Elvis? And I said, I'd love to meet Elvis. And he said, well, he's recording a gospel album, and he wants to do a bunch of songs that the Golden Gate Quartet recorded, a black gospel group, because he heard them when he was in the Army in France, because they moved to France and they worked all the circuits over there, and Elvis went to hear them over there, but he got back over here and he couldn't find their albums. I had their whole collection. He said, bring the Golden Gate Quartet collection of albums down to RCAB, because Elvis wants to cut a bunch of those songs. So if you hear the album that you got to run on for a long time, run on for a long time, those songs on that album, they came off of the Golden Gate Quartet albums out of my collection. There's probably about, I have nothing to do with them other than I collected Golden Gate records. I collect all kind of albums. I got everything that Everly Brothers ever cut, everything the Sons of the Pioneers ever cut, everything the Golden Gate Quartet ever cut. I collect albums because I glean from them, and I find jewels in those collections that have wound up on Oakridge Boys albums, or in this case, on Elvis albums, because there's a reason those groups have a name and you still recognize those names. They cut great songs. Songs are the secret to the success of all artists that remain popular after their death. And I collect songs. I'm a song man. I think 3 minutes of magic is the most important thing you can ever add to an artist's career. 3 minutes of magic.
We're really fortunate here at y'all because we're really playing, huge hits from the 80s, 90s, and really early 2000s, and that's really all we play. So obviously we play a ton of Oakridge Boys, but this music that we're playing, your music, it just stands the test of time. Good music is good music, and it's amazing that when I look at our audience, how young it is and how much they appreciate the songs that we're playing. And a lot of that is the songs that you made. So that's pretty cool.
It's kind of like the old hymns of the church. You take songs like Amazing Grace, How Great Thou Art, and those songs that everybody knows. And why do we all know them? Because they're great.
They're great.
They're great. They have lived, and they've lived through the test of time. We have songs in country music that have outlived the artists that sing them. The song Elvira has outlived the guy that wrote it. Yeah. We went to his funeral. In fact, he wrote a song for the Oakridge Boys and Johnny Russell back when we were a gospel group called The Baptism of Jesse Taylor, that Johnny Russell had a #1 record with, but we won a Grammy with it in gospel music. So Dallas Frazier helped us all buy a new house with Elvira.
Hey,
and we helped him buy a new house.
I started to say, goes both ways, doesn't it? Absolutely.
Didn't y'all just do a new video for Elvira with some new country artists?
And it was an unusual video concept. The storyline behind videos can vary. They usually have almost a movie theme behind some of them. But this one, Brandon Wood, who does a lot of our photography work and video work today, Brandon had an idea that he wanted to do a tribute to the song, Elvira. And he wanted us to come in and see a tribute band doing Elvira and having the reactions recorded of us seeing someone else doing our song. And we had a whole bunch of guests come in from Big and Rich to Ray Stevens to, we just had a whole bunch of people come in to John Rich's place downtown. And it was a fun video shoot. It just went by so fast, nobody wanted to leave.
It looked like a big old party.
It was a big old party, and it was so much fun to cut. And it was such a great idea. And the little boy that shows up on the end of the video, that's Brandon Wood, reacting to Elvira when he was a little boy. And that's where the idea came from.
Cool.
How it affected him when he was a little boy.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you guys coming in and spending some time with us. Best of luck on the new album. It's, again, going to be out on Friday. So
I got to tell you this.
10 new songs.
There's one new song on there that we especially love.
Which one?
It's one, when we got it, I felt just like I felt when I heard the song Why Me Lord by Chris Christopherson. I just got chills all up and down my arm when I heard that song. Well, when I heard this song, I got the same kind of chills all over my body. And I thought, wow, man, country music artists that write their own songs and write songs for other people, they have a way of looking into a house from a different window. They have a different way to approach the subject. And I love writers who write like that and just have a different attitude. who wrote this song? Well, I found out who wrote it, and I said, is there any way we can get him to sing it with us? I don't know, let's check it out. We checked it out, we called their people, and they said, well, he's in Maui. So we got a message back from him. He said, well, I've never recorded with the Oakridge Boys. I've recorded with everybody else, but not the Oakridge Boys. It would be an honor. You just got to let me get back home from Maui. And so we waited to record that particular song with Willie Nelson.
Oh, that's awesome.
But he put his part on, and we recorded I Thought About You, Lord, with Willie Nelson. Our first time to ever record with Willie, and I think it's a masterpiece.
And by the way, we tried to feel sorry for him when he told us he was in Maui.
No. Not going to feel sorry for him at all. Enjoying the sunshine and the beach.
Well, you just got back from the beach. You said sunshine. You took your wife to Key West?
Yes, I did. I tried to surprise her for our anniversary, and we had a great time. It's beautiful down there. It certainly is. Yeah.
I think you guys' private life is just as interesting as your career, because that's the stuff people want to know. You were telling me you have a vegetable garden and you go fishing and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, and I've got some heirloom tomatoes that are really ugly, but I hear they are going to be great. I've already had 2 of them, and they taste so good.
Helps you unwind a little bit, gardening, huh?
Yeah, we had some days off in July, and I planted a late garden because I wanted to do something with my downtime to keep my mind occupied. And so I planted me a patio garden. I'm a farm boy. I know how to plant it out in the farm. I've done that. I've got a farm. And I planted a garden out there before, but I wanted to plant one right at my house where I could just walk out my back door and I'm in the garden. And I've got a bunch of Tabasco peppers already in a bottle. I've got some other really, really hot peppers already picked. I've got some bell peppers coming, and I've already put away some squash and some cucumbers, and I've got a bunch of tomatoes. If the frost doesn't get them, they're a little late, but if the frost doesn't get them, I'm going to have a whole bunch of tomatoes.
Got a whole farmer's market. You got a green thumb, Richard? How about you?
Well, I'm from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I haven't planted a garden in several years, but I had a garden every year when I was a little kid growing up in New Jersey. They call New Jersey the Garden State, and it really is. It certainly is.
So, how's the best way to keep track of the Oakridge Boys? Your social medias, all your handles, and
you can go to our webpage, and if you want to see where we're going to be appearing, just type in oakridgeboys.com/tour, and the dates will come right up.
And you guys are going to be busy. There's a lot of opportunities to see you guys.
We've got a lot of dates before Christmas. We've got a Christmas tour, and we've got some dates right before we get into the Christmas shows that we're working this weekend. We've got a couple of dates this weekend, and we work the middle of November through right before Christmas. We've got over 20 dates already that we still have to work.
So all that information can be found at oakridgeboys.com.
Yeah, /tour.
/tour. And this new album, Mama's Boys, out October 25th. Thank y'all for hanging out with us today.